Go Academy bus for our preschool students in more wonderful areas where we have tons of people waiting to have their children learn to read early. They're 3 and 4-year-olds. And so today, we are in the, obviously, redevelopment, and I'm stalling, as you can tell. And happy birthday to Brian Scott. 40 years old. It's wonderful. Just wonderful. Okay, here we go. Redevelopment Agency meeting of October 21st, 2020 is called to order. The meeting has been properly noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law. These proceedings are being video recorded as well as presented live on KCLV Cable Channel 2 and are closed captioned for our hearing impaired viewers. Made possible through the underwriting from HOMI. Please note Customer CenturyLink and Cox Communication may view this program in high definition on channel 1002 and in standard definition on channel 2. You may also watch the meeting live on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, on the Go Vegas app. The Redevelopment Agency meeting, as well as all other KCLV program, may be viewed on the internet at www.kclv.tv/live. These proceedings will be rebroadcast on KCLV Channel 2 and the web the Wednesday of the meeting at 8 p.m., Friday at 4 a.m., Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 7 a.m., and the following Monday at 5 p.m. This building is protected by state-of-the-art fire detection and suppression sprinkler systems. If alarms should activate during our meeting today, please evacuate using the exit at the back of the chambers, go out the mezzanine, proceed out the double doors to the terrace, and go down the back staircase. For anyone who has difficulty with stairs, please check with a marshal or fire official for assistance. Once outside, assemble on the northeast corner across the street from City Hall at Lewis and First. Employees wearing safety vests or city marshals will inform you when it's safe to re-enter the building. For public comment related to items on the agenda, citizen participation, and public hearing items, we have available a speaker card which you may complete and submit to the city clerk up front. Cards are available in the clerk's office at the rear of these chambers. But if you do not submit a card, it does not prevent you from speaking under public comment, citizen participation, or specified public hearing items. If anyone present today has need for hearing impaired equipment, please come forward and see our city clerk staff. And please note, if you parked in the parking garage across the street, a self-validation machine is located in the foyer between the council chambers and security desk you walk through to enter the chambers. You must have your ticket with you to use the machine, but if you do not, see security personnel when exiting for a validation coupon. We will now move on to agenda item 3, which is our first public comment during this portion of the agenda, and must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. The amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. All comments made will be cross-referenced to those specific items, and if anyone submitted a speaker card who wishes to speak under this portion of the agenda, please come to the podium and state your name for the record. The usual good morning rush. Aha, a customer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is this item number 5?
Yes, it will be.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning. Lex Anderson. Councilman Carrera advised us that item 47 would not be brought forward for public
No,
discussion.
this is redevelopment. I'm sorry. I thought
Okay.
you will wait for the next meeting at 9.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else on the redevelopment agenda? All right, we'll move on to agenda item 4 for possible action to approve the minutes by reference to the regular redevelopment agency meeting of September 2nd, 2020. Mayor Pro Tem, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move for approval, Mayor.
Thank you. There's a motion to approve those minutes. Please vote and please post. And Councilwoman Seaman, are you on the line?
No, ma'am. She'll be on for the city council meeting.
For this council meeting. Okay, thank you. And please post then, but I don't understand. Councilman Creer, you're an aye, I'm sure. Yes. There. Thank you, it passes. We'll move on to Agenda Item 5, discussion for possible action regarding the transfer up to $1,800,000 to the Smith Center for the Performing Arts. Smith Center from excess car rental fees is defined in the lease and operating agreement dated February 15, 2012, due to the COVID-19 impacts, subject to concurrence by the Smith Center and the City of Las Vegas City to the terms of the transfer not to exceed $1,800,000 multi-purpose special revenue fund, redevelopment area 1, Ward 5, Councilman Creer. This item is related to City Council Item 40. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Goodman and board members of the Redevelopment Agency. For the record, Gary Ameling, your Chief Financial Officer. First, before we get into the request from the Smith Center, I thought it was important to give you a little bit of background information on the Smith Center property and the relationship between the Smith Center and the city and the Redevelopment Agency. Per NRS and an interlocal agreement with the county, the city was distributed pledged car rental tax in order to build a performing arts center. The city entered into a 99-year lease and operating agreement with the Smith Center for the Performing Arts located at Symphony Park. The city is the landlord, and as the landlord is the owner of the property, and the Smith Center owns a leasehold interest in the property. The Smith Center, as a tenant, entered into a triple net lease and is responsible for all operating and maintenance costs of the premises. The city issued general obligation bonds in order to construct the Performing Arts Center. The debt service on those bonds is paid for with the pledged car rental tax. Per the agreements between the city, the Smith Center, and the Redevelopment Agency, the money goes to fund debt service reserves and pay for the debt service payments associated with the bonds. It goes also to pay back the Redevelopment Agency a $20 million note because the Redevelopment Agency contributed towards the construction costs of the project. The current balance on that note is $8 million. And then thirdly, it goes, if there's any excess, it goes to cover operating and maintenance costs for the Smith Center. With respect to the item on your agenda, due to the COVID pandemic and the resulting restrictions on the sizes of gatherings, the Smith Center has been unable to hold any events or performances. Holding events at reduced capacity has not been financially feasible for the Smith Center. Because of the financial implications of that, they've had to take cost-cutting measures, including furloughing the majority of their staff, taking pay cuts, and still find themselves about $600,000 per month short of covering all of their operating costs. To help cover those operating costs during the period when they don't have revenues coming in, they've asked the Redevelopment Agency and the city to consider allowing them to basically jump ahead of the priority for those excess car rental tax monies and allow them to borrow the car rental tax monies to help them cover their costs. The city and the Redevelopment Agency looked at that request, and we wanted to also look at how the performance of the car rental tax has been affected by the pandemic. And when we look at the performance of the car rental tax, unfortunately, like our other city revenues, the performance of the collections has gone down dramatically. However, we do still have the reserves, and we have been able to cover the debt service payments. So the recommendation from the city and from the city staff and the Redevelopment Agency staff is that we consider the request of $1.8 million, but that we do it in two tranches. We give them an initial $900,000 contribution from that excess car rental tax at this time, and that we consider further assistance once we have more information about the ongoing impacts of the pandemic on the car rental tax. And with me today is Myron Martin from the Smith Center, and I believe he's got a few comments and be able to answer any questions that you have as well.
Thank you, Mr. Ameling. Welcome, and I want to thank you personally, and I know I speak for many, but the jewel of the desert just culturally has put us in a whole new level, internationally as well as nationally, and every one of us probably has enjoyed one or two entertaining somethings that have performed there, and you've just, the building in itself and the design, everything, it's just been part of the heart of the city since it opened its doors under your leadership especially. So, Mr. Martin, thank you very much. I don't want to take up your time, but I just want you to know, so grateful, and no world-class city exists unless there's a cultural base. Can't do it. So please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Ameling. Let me start by saying that this car rental tax represents really one of the great public-private partnerships in our country's history. Here, the city, the county, and the state all came together to find a way to do something that had not been done before, and that's to bring a world-class performing arts center to Las Vegas. The car rental tax is designed to design, build, and operate our performing arts center. And we thank the city that because when we were under construction, the bond didn't yield quite as much as we thought it would. The city stepped in, the redevelopment agency stepped in and provided $20 million in funding, and we agreed that the city would then get excess rental car taxes until such time as you were paid back. More than half of that has been repaid. I thought we were on a schedule before March that in the next year or so you would be fully repaid and all those excess taxes would flow to the Smith Center. In this situation, we find ourselves closed. We're dark. Our partners, both on the Broadway side in New York, are dark. Broadway in New York has announced that they will not reopen until next summer at the very earliest. Other friends, the Metropolitan Opera, said it will be at least next October before they consider reopening. And the truth is, not to make this kind of a crude statement, but we see Broadway as kind of our product, right? That's what we sell, our experience of shows. And if it's not happening in New York, the tours aren't going out either. So we don't have shows to put up. We are a presenting house, not a place that produces our shows locally. And so we count on that, as we count on the great concerts that we bring to Las Vegas and the dance and all the rest that we bring to our great town. And of course, when we do that, we inspire 200,000 Clark County school students each year and others. So, Mayor, I thank you for your comments. We are a world-class city, and the Smith Center can't wait to get back to work and to start inspiring audiences again. But we know that we were one of the first to close, and we will be one of the very last to reopen. That's the hand that's dealt us. We're practicing patience at the moment. So it's going to be a little while. We've gone to donors who have stepped up and helped us to fund $650,000 a month to be closed. Think about it. That's security, that's utilities, it's building engineering. And by the way, had we not had someone on our building engineering staff on the graveyard shift 3 weeks ago who found a small leak in the basement, that would have turned into a flood, and we would have had serious, serious problems. So thank God that we have these great people on staff and working. We've cut our team by more than 2/3, and those who stayed on, myself included, took significant pay cuts just to see us through to what I'm calling Act 2, the reopening of the Smith Center. So we've come to the city and said, just like our donors have stepped forward, just like our ticket buyers. Mayor, I have to tell you how humbling it is for me to see that everyday people, school teachers and police and fire folks and city council members, when we said we need to be dark, certain shows are not going to happen, and we encourage you to donate your tickets back to the Smith Center. Everyday people have said, I'll do that. I've got 2 tickets for an upcoming show. I will donate the value of those tickets to the Smith Center to help see you through to the next stage. So a lot of people are helping us get through this. Our request to the city is to say, because this rental car tax is meant to flow to the Smith Center eventually, that we step in front of the line just a little bit. We're not asking for taxpayer money. We're not asking for the city to give us general funds. We're just asking if we could get a little bit of the reserve funds that we have for the rental car tax, just to see us through so that we can reopen successfully. And I want to say, Mayor, for your viewers at home who have asked the question, is the Smith Center going to reopen? The absolute answer is yes. The Smith Center will reopen. We just don't know when. And lastly, I will say for those listening at home that you can help support that effort by going to Save Our Stages, an act that's happening in Congress right now and co-sponsored by our own Dina Titus that will help the Smith Center and stages across the country, large and small, so that we can reopen. So we thank you for the support. It represents, the first $900,000 payment represents a month and a half of operating support. It's going to help us get through to Act 2 and the reopening. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and again, thank you for everything that's been accomplished these years. Question, and please, I'll ask council to, at the end of the month and a half, when and how will you proceed from that point on? Because from the sounds, I mean, the governor has not changed the 50% rule. What is, first of all, your break-even point for holding an event, assuming it's local, because we're down on tourism?
So, Mayor, the challenge of having any kind of event right now is with the vast majority of our team furloughed, we can't bring them back until there's enough to substantiate their salaries. So we can't bring them back for a day or two just to do one event. We have to be prepared to do a lot of events. And frankly, what people expect from the Smith Center is that world-class experience that you talked about. You know, the Smith Center has been on the Pollstar list of the top 10 theaters in the world since the year we opened. Think about that. In all of the world, we are noted as one of the top 10. So we want to give people a top 10 experience when we bring them back, not a watered-down version of what we used to do.
So then you're hoping for the funds from federal government, perhaps, if it comes to be, kick in to help across the country, obviously, with all those and any of the performing arts.
That's right. The Save Our Stages Act and the Restart Act, both being considered by Congress, would help us tremendously and really would get us to the finish line. I think we need that to get there. Fortunately, the Donald W. Reynolds Foundation, when we opened the Smith Center, saw to it that they provided for an endowment for the Smith Center. Now, we can't spend the corpus. We only get to spend the interest. But it's helped to get us through this dark period, as have individual donors, as I mentioned earlier. So when I say this helps us for a month and a half, I don't mean that in a month and a half we close. I just mean this is a big deal. It helps us an awful lot. And the city, along with private donors and others, are what sees us through, because you think about it, we only have one cash register at the Smith Center. It's ticket sales, and we're selling 0 tickets right now.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Councilman Knutson?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Martin, for the presentation. I'm an avid goer to the Smith Center, so I appreciate what the Smith Center has been and what it will be in the future. Just one quick question. I asked in briefings, and hopefully I'm not catching you off guard, but I am curious about performing arts centers around the country and how they are surviving and what their financial outlook will look like in the future.
Yeah, Councilman Knutson, I thank you for that. I am on multiple calls each week, Zoom meetings, as I don't know about you guys, but I've had my fill of Zooms here lately. But I'm on multiple meetings every week with a national group of performing arts centers. We're all in the same boat. We're all closed. We're all wondering when that date is going to come when we can reopen. And the truth is, they, like me, are dealing with when are the tours going to go back out again? When are their customers comfortable with going back into a place filled with other people? and there's a lot of discussion around vaccines and around treatments and around masks. And all the things that will go into kind of getting us to a reopening period. To answer your question, we're not alone. And because unlike the commercial venues on the Strip that we're starting to see reopen at the 25% reopening, who typically deal primarily with tourists, the Smith Center was built primarily for those of us who live here. And we're putting safety first. We're doing an awful lot, by the way, Councilman, to prepare for the day that we open. We're initiating kind of cashless payment systems in our bars. We believe that we'll be ready for a ticket that isn't a piece of paper, but something that's on your phone that can be scanned so that we're not handing off paper between folks and other things. New disinfecting systems. We've put UV in all of our HVAC system, which is helping to kill the virus should it get into the HVAC system. So we're doing an awful lot because safety is our first priority right now, because the people who come to the Smith Center are our friends and neighbors.
And one more question, if I may, Mayor. And I appreciate that information. On the follow-up would be is how are other performing arts centers around the country financially making it right now? Given that we're in a unique position because of the rental car tax, I'm curious how other centers around the country are doing it.
So Councilman, if you think of kind of a broader group of stages, those stages that are affected by the Save Our Stages Act, I mean, those include things like Texas roadhouses, you know, where people like Willie Nelson got his start, you know, bars that promote great music in Austin, Texas, or in other places around the country. That wonderful club where Prince used to unveil all of his music up north. These are places that are struggling. They're more commercial in nature. They're privately owned, and they don't have kind of backstop like we do, like a rental car tax, or the great foresight of the Donald W. Reynolds Foundation, who helped us get our start. I believe that there will be many stages that will close completely, if not for help from Save Our Stages. The larger performing arts centers are all finding a way to get through the dark period so that they can reopen. As I look around the country at the Kennedy Center or the Lincoln Center or the Rest or the Smith Center, we're going to survive one way or another. But I won't be surprised to see some of our brethren out there having to close their doors.
Thank you. And two, I mean, we've got our own wonderful Philharmonic and the Nevada Ballet. It just, you look at all those people who really can't even enjoy an essential part of their lives by participating, and to say nothing of having the experience of being able to support whatever they need to be doing. So it's just, the whole thing is. So at this point, if there are no other questions, Councilman Creer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't reiterate what everyone has said. You know, the Smith Center is beyond reproach, a facility and an institution now that rounds out what a great community is all about. As a former board member and sitting in meetings with you and understanding the mission of what the Smith Center was accomplishing, spot on, and you guys have lived up to that mission, I think, 100%. As I look at my office, and I remember we talked about this before we opened, you know, I'd like to see, you know, we talked about the performing arts and the concerts that are happening there, but the work that you have done from the community standpoint, and you and I had a conversation years ago about, I would love to see school buses wrapped around the building. And I look out my window and see the Smith Center, and you know what we see? School buses wrapped around the building. And so it's more than just going to listen to Broadway or amazing music and amazing, you know, seeing amazing plays. It is community. And it's much different than any other performing arts center, facility, stage, or what have you, than anywhere in our state. And I think we have an obligation to support it and to do what we can to ensure its success, especially during these dark times. So I'm 1,000% in support of this, and if there's no more questions, I'll make a motion for approval for item number 5.
Thank you. There is a motion. Would you please vote and please post? And that motion is approved. We'll see you back here for item, is it 40? We'll
Thank
see
you.
in a bit. Thank you very much. And we will now, are we recorded everything okay, Madam Clerk? Okay. The redevelopment agency is adjourned, and we will start, I don't even know what time, is it 9? Oh, excuse me, we have a second public hearing. So citizen participation, public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the redevelopment agency. No subject may be acted upon by the redevelopment agency unless the subject's on the agenda and scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, please come to the podium, give your name for the record, the amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. And yes, we do have someone who would like to make comment and open to everyone else. So if you'd remove your comment, because the words come out garbled, and I hear from the public they can't understand what people are saying. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Madam Mayor, Your Honor, and distinguished council. I wanted to speak on number 28
Did you
on the
just say
regular
your
agenda.
name?
I'm Katie Duncan,
Okay.
and it falls within the redevelopment agency area. It has to do with the renovation of Jackson Avenue. And I'm very happy that the Public Works is moving ahead with Jackson Avenue. But as you know, we've been working on the Pioneer Trail corridor revitalization, and we will love it if when they do the Jackson Avenue improvement, that we're able to plant some legacy trees along Jackson Avenue so that we can give the people in the community an opportunity to be involved in the redevelopment of Jackson Avenue.
Lovely.
So if we could just ask the Public Works Department to work with the Historic West Side Chamber of Commerce, because we're going to put the names of the iconic families so that we can leave a legacy and protect our history along Jackson
Lovely
Avenue.
idea. Thank you. And if you would, if you have a card with you, if you'd give it to Mr. Cervantes there, and he'll make sure it gets to our Public Works.
I will grab it
Thank
and
you.
I'll give it to Mr. Cervantes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, and the mask back on. You can't be walking around without your mask, Ms. Duncan. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Tashika Lawson. My question it's mostly going to be for the Smith Center. And I understand that the Smith Center is hurting it as an actual cultural center of Las Vegas, new cultural center of Las Vegas. I support it being able to get some funding. I don't think that it's right that they can just step ahead of other people in like families, other organizations that have been petitioning either the city or local organizations for assistance, and they haven't received anything, where we have a center that can jump to the head of a line, even if it is for a loan that would have been paid to them eventually. Also, I would like to know if the money that they're asking for, is this going to be the amount that they're going to be asking for now, as we know that there's going to be a major upheaval one way or another with local and national agencies after this election, and we want to make sure that this is not a feeding trough for the Smith Center to be able to feed from, where our citizens aren't at times able to get access to even safe food sources. My last thing when it comes to this is, as an actual cultural center that actually is receiving funding from the Smith Center, and we have citizens that are standing up for the Smith Center, but I don't see the Smith Center standing up for the preservation of actual local historical landmarks. So I won't support something like this if we don't see them actually in the community, especially in the African American community, trying to support not trying to stop the demolition of an actual historical buildings that are for the G&J. These are buildings that were purchased by the city of Las Vegas that are actually pivotal to, the Ward 5 and historic West Side. With the destruction of more buildings, this district will have a harder time being registered as an actual historic district, which brings, again, culture to the city.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make comment? Still on the redevelopment agenda? Okay, now I will adjourn the meeting, and we need a few minutes to transfer over, because it's 9:03. We'll go right into the council meeting, so just give us a couple of minutes, please.